Hey guys, this is Mr. Lepage here again. I'm just going to bring you through a quick unit on selecting within Photoshop. Selecting is probably one of the most powerful things you probably want to figure out within Photoshop because it allows you to work with graphic images and not just the big graphic image, but pieces of a graphic image. It also allows the ability to pull from one picture to another. Many of the web pictures out there that you see, I guess Photoshop is now being coined a verb. If you've been out on the web and you're looking at images that have been photoshopped, I guarantee you people have used selections in order to take things out of certain. I guess the best example would be to take a head from one person or the face from one graphic and putting it on a body of another. It seems to be the most popular craze these days in terms of photoshopping as a verb. Other than making pictures look absolutely beautiful, that didn't start out that way. So there you go. There's your English lesson as well as we talk about photoshopping as a verb, similar to Googling. Anyway, talk about selections. Here's if your screen is not set up the same way mine is, you can go ahead and do so. Keep in mind your tools can either be long like that, or you can two column them. I like to two column them because it kind of makes the panel a little compacted a little bit better. I've got my layers palette up just in case. I always keep my layers palette up, quite honestly, because if I inadvertently put a layer in there, and especially with selections, you're going to see that if you've got extra layers in here and you don't know they're there, your selections, it's going to mess you up with your selections in terms of thinking you're selecting something when you're on another layer that has nothing on it. So anyway, you'll figure that out as time goes on. Selections are broken down into three sections. You have your geometric selections, which are primarily based on shapes. So you're using shapes to create a selection. Those are found here. You've got a rectangular marquee tool, and you've also got an elliptical and single row marquee and single column. These are all your geometric shapes. And again, those are based on, or geometric selections, those are based on shapes to be able to determine what you want to select out of the picture. The second grouping are the freehand selections. Those are right under the geometric selections. You click on that one, you've got three there. You've got your lasso tool, you've got your polygonal lasso tool, and your magnetic lasso tool, and I'll cover each one of those two as well. And again, those are freehand selections. Those will allow you to basically create a selection based upon your mouse skills and whatever you can draw. And the last section are the color-based selections, and those are found right over here. So you got primarily two of them there. You've got a quick selection tool, which is kind of a combination of two of them. I'll show you that in a second. And you also have your magic wand tool, which is strictly allowing the user to select based upon what color they are using or what color they're looking for. We're actually going to work with that one first. So great. So your three selection types. You've got, just to rewind, you got geometric, freehand, and color-based. So let's get started. I'm going to go to the lesson file, and I'm going to go to, mine's on my desktop, and again, yours may or may not be on your desktop, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go into the Photoshop folder, and I'm going to go into lesson 4, and I'm going to pick up 04 Start. And what you're going to see in front of you is a screen of a bunch of vegetables with a cutting board. I'm going to expand this out a little bit, make it a little bit bigger so I can see. If your image is not coming up in its own window, make sure you go to Window, Arrange, and you've got, mine's a CS3 version. In your CS5 version, you've got a version a command that basically tells you to arrange all in Windows, or float, I believe is what it's called, float all in Windows, and that'll allow you to get your own picture here. All right, so in essence, the game plan for this cutting board is to grab all these vegetables in some way, shape, or form around the bend here, and we're going to place them all on the cutting board in certain places. The first one we're going to move is the tomato, and to really kind of show you what's going on with the tomato in terms of selecting the tomato, I'm going to grab the zoom tool, which is right here, and basically I am going to drag a square around the tomato, and what that's going to do is it's going to zoom in to the tomato. Now keep in mind the zoom tool does not change the size of the picture. It just changes the viewing window with which you're looking at. So I've just basically exploded the picture so that all I can see is the tomato. So here we go with the tomato. What I want to do is grab the tomato, just the tomato alone, and I want to move it over into the cutting board. I'm going to use a color-based selection, so I'm going to go over to the color-based panel, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the magic wand tool. The minute you click on any one of these tools, you're going to get some adjustments up here. So as I go through this, I will talk about some of these adjustments as well. We are grabbing the magic wand, and I want to make sure the tolerance, let's go into tolerance, is 100. So basically, here's what tolerance does. Tolerance allows you to either pick more shades of a color or less shades of a color. So at tolerance at 100, as opposed to where it was at 32, let's click in here and see what happens. So basically, my tolerance is higher at 100, which means I've kind of grabbed more of the red. Let me change this back to 32, which is where it was. I'm going to deselect this. If you hit your Command Control D on your keyboard, you will end up doing the same thing. But if I go back to 32, watch what happens. If you notice, it only picks a certain chunk of the reds. If I expand this out like I did before to 100, and I'm going to deselect, Control D, and now I click again in the same spot, you'll see I have way more red here. So it not only took the deep reds, it also took the lighter reds too as well. Now you'll notice, just by clicking on with the magic wand, I don't have the whole entire tomato. I've got this edge that could be a problem out here. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to add to this selection. And there are two keystrokes you can use to either add from a selection or delete from a selection. If I want to add to a selection, I'm still on my magic wand. Watch my cursor, my magic wand cursor, and I'm going to push down on the Shift key. The minute I push down on the Shift key, you see a little plus that forms under the cursor. The other one that allows you to subtract from a selection is the Control key. If I press on the Control key, you will see, Alt. It's the Alt key as I'm fumbling with my keyboard here. So in order to subtract from a selection, you must press the Alt key. And that Alt key shows a little minus underneath your wand. So again, you want to add to a selection, you press Shift. You want to subtract from a selection, you press Alt. Okay, so I've got to go around the end of the tomato here and add all of these selections that I've got going on here. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I'm going to click right in the red. And as you notice, it does a pretty good job of adding all of those reds in there. I'm also going to go into the middle of the green and click until I don't see any more shimmering pieces. That's a tough one. I got to get in there. That's probably a white pixel, or I can zoom right in if I want to see why that's not selecting. So I'm going to, real tough. Anyway, this is where you OCD folks are going to be struggling with this. So let me zoom in a little more. This is probably a good little view. Zoom in. If I keep going, you'll see, bang, gone. All right, so I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to Control plus here. Oh, minus, sorry. Control minus, and you'll see I've got my whole tomato selected. So I'm good. I'm ready to go. I can actually move this tomato into the cutting board. So I'm going to go back to View, and I'm going to zoom out until I see the cutting board, or I'm going to hit Control minus until I see the cutting board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Move tool, which is the arrowhead, and watch what happens. I'm going to actually move the tomato onto the cutting board, but as I do that, you're going to see the background color appear behind the tomato. So I'm basically cutting and pasting, although you don't really know it, and I'm going to put it right on the bottom left corner of the cutting board there. So there's your tomato. Talked about three different selection types. We actually used a color-based selection. Talked about adding to a selection and subtracting to a selection and moving a piece once it's selected. We'll stop there for now and we'll come back with more veggies. All right, we're back with our veggies. We've actually taken the tomato and we've moved it over to the left side of the cutting board. This is kind of where we left off. Next up is going to be the lettuce. So let us move the big head of lettuce over here. We're going to move that onto the cutting board, but we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to start to use some of the geometric shape selection tools. So first things first, I am basically going to grab the rectangular marquee tool, which is the very top left tool in the tool palette, and I'm going to very quickly draw a, well, let me take off my settings were from some previous things. So we're going to take those off, and I'm going to quickly draw a rectangle around the lettuce. I want to make sure a couple of things. I want to make sure I've grabbed all of the lettuce, so make sure all the lettuce is in the square, and make sure you don't drag down too far to grab a piece of the bell pepper. So we want to just select the lettuce. Now you might ask the question, I mean, obviously I could use the magic wand to select the lettuce, but as I look at the lettuce, you'll notice there's some interesting white and greens on the edges. It would take me forever to use the magic wand tool to actually grab from the lettuce. What we're about to do is a little counterintuitive though. I've selected the whole entire rectangle here. What I'm going to do is, so in essence, everything that's selected in here is what I've decided to work with. Instead of selecting the lettuce itself, we are basically going to select the white around it and then inverse to the lettuce, if that makes any sense. So in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our magic wand. Make sure of this. Make sure your tolerance is down to 32. And again, this is going to limit the amount of colors that I select when I select the magic wand. So watch what happens. So within this selection, I've got my magic wand. I'm going to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard again for that minus. And basically what I'm trying to do here is tell Photoshop, within this selection, this box of selection, I do not want anything that's white. So if you think about it, if within this box I am taking out all of the white, what should be left? Obviously the lettuce would be the only thing left. The part of the image that's not white. So let me click, see what happens. I go ahead and click, and lo and behold, look, there's my lettuce, and there it is. And if you look, the shimmering line, the selection line is all the way around it. So we're good to go. I'm going to take my lettuce, and I'm going to move that in. We're actually going to put that in the top left corner of the cutting board, just like that. Let me kind of shoot over here so you can actually see it. So there you go. Your tomatoes down here, your lettuce is down there, or your lettuce is up there, and we're good there. So again, once again, I started off by using that geometric tool, the rectangle. We're actually going to do another geometric tool right now. We're going to grab this bowl of this little bowl of olives. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see the whole thing at once. These you might think look like grapes, but they're actually olives. Smaller picture. I'm going to deselect. So my lettuce isn't selected anymore. I've moved it right to where I want it to be. I'm going to grab, instead of the rectangle, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to grab the elliptical. Actually, let's zoom into the olives first. So I'm going to grab my zoom tool, and I'm going to zoom in. Once you zoom in, you realize, oh my God, they are olives. They don't look like grapes anymore. So I'm going to grab the elliptical marquee tool, and what this allows you to do is to create an ellipse. And you might say, wow, geez, a circle might be a good marquee tool as well. This is the same tool, and I'll show you how to do a circle a little bit later on, but we're going to work with the ellipse. So just to test it out, start from above the olives, hold your mouse key down, and just start dragging, and you'll see the ellipse. And now you start moving your mouse around, and you can see there's all different ideas that you can use and different shapes and sizes of the ellipse that you can use. So in essence, what I want to do is, and this might be a little difficult for you because it does take some mouse skills at this point, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top left here of the bowl, and I'm going to start to just drag an ellipse. And you'll notice, depending upon where you start is depending upon where the ellipse begins. Now the nice thing to be here, I've got it shaped like the bowl, give or take, but it's off center a little bit. So the nice thing, I still have my finger on the mouse button, by the way, because the minute I let go, the selection's locked in. But a nice piece would be if I could move this selection while I'm creating it. And Photoshop allows you to do that by holding down the space bar. So I've got my finger on my mouse button. I'll push down on the space bar, and now I can move that elliptical selection wherever I want it to go. So I'm going to try to line up the top and the left as best I can. I'm going to let go of the space bar, and I'm going to resize it, and I'm going to snap it back. And if I keep going, I can get pretty close to the edge of that bowl. You'll go through this whole process over and over and over again of moving this selection and seeing if you can get it. But the minute I think I got it good, I let go of the mouse button, and there's my selection. So now we got to move this back, so I'm going to zoom out. So Control minus. I'm going to zoom out of here. And basically, I want to move the olives into the bottom left corner. Here's a question on your question set. You do not, I'm still on the selection tool, you do not have to go to the move tool to actually move this bowl of olives. If I just within the selection, if I hold down the control key, you'll notice your cursor turns to a pair of scissors, which typically means cut. And now that I'm still in the selection tool, holding down the control key, now I can actually move this bowl of olives right where I want it to be without even using the move tool. So I've done that. Now once you're there, you can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard. And if you notice, still with the olive bowl selected, I can hit up arrow, down arrow, and this is called nudging. I can nudge this just by using the arrow keys on my keyboard. So if it's not exactly where I need it to be, I just move it with my arrow keys, and I can put it exactly where I want it to be. There's also other ways that you can move this thing in bigger increments. Those are with keystrokes. You've got, if I hold down the shift key and then push the up arrow or the down arrow, you'll notice they're in bigger. If I don't, it moves in smaller increments. If I hold down the shift key, it moves in bigger increments. 10 pixels is not a big deal. 1 pixel is even less of a deal, but 10 pixels really, it'll help you move things in bigger increments, but it's really not that big of a deal. So we've got the olive bowl, the bowl of olives moved over. The other thing I really didn't show you, let's say we didn't want to, I'm going to step back here and we'll put the olive bowl back. I've already moved it with just by holding down the control key. I'm still on the selection, I can move it. I've done that, so that's going to cut it out. There's another process you can use to move something, and that's called copying. If I go to the move tool and then hold down the alt key, notice what happens. I can actually move it. I'll move it over, and it actually stays over here. So in essence, what I've done is, instead of cutting it from where it was and moving it, I've actually copied it and moved it over. So you can keep an original of where it is, and all the while moving a copy of it to where you need it to go. So two different ways to move things. It all matters whether you want to keep your original where it should be, or if you don't mind these black holes or red holes. I must tell you that the reason it's black, you've probably figured out pretty quickly, is look at my background color. My background color is black, so anything I cut from these pictures will obviously leave the background, which in this case is black. If that bothers you, before I started this, we could have changed the background to white, and you wouldn't see these gaping holes of where we've moved our veggies from. But the bottom line is, honestly, once I'm done this picture, I'm going to crop all the rest of this stuff out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We'll stop right there. We'll come back with more geometric selections, and we're going to work with the button.